Colorism. That's a very deep-rooted and important topic.
Growing up as a young Black girl with a facial birthmark, I have a unique perspective on beauty and acceptance in America. The topics of colorism and flawlessness are an interesting pair that aren't discussed in tandem. The two topics have significantly impacted our standard of beauty, and the reality is, if we don't urgently shift our perspective and alter the narrative, continuing down our current path could further have devastating effects.
When you think about colorism, especially here in America and even more so in Black America, it could be traced back as far as slavery. It's very well known and well documented that in those times, slaves who were of fair complexion or the light-skinned slaves were given a lot more opportunity. They were treated better. A lot of times they were able to work in more comfortable conditions and be inside of the slave master's house and take care of their kids and looked at as more trustworthy, as opposed to the other darker skinned slaves who were out in the field in the harsher conditions. And I think that spoke and kind of laid a large foundational piece of what is still alive today in our standard of beauty and acceptance and color.
This clear differentiation had a major impact on how the world viewed our skin. It had an even greater impact on how we viewed ourselves. Lighter is better is the message that has echoed across airwaves for generation after generation. And when this messaging has been woven into the fabric of Black America's inception and mixed with the deep traumas of that time frame, it's no wonder many Black Americans are still filled with the negative self-identity they were force-fed for generations. Young Black boys and girls are still growing up today, placing significant value on the levels of concentrated pigment that coats their skin, looking to their left and right, even amongst their own, deciding how they measure up. I myself would often focus on my complexion and feel somewhat in an acceptance limbo of sorts, too dark for those outside my ethnic group, yet not quite dark enough for those within it.
I think it's important to recognize and to understand and to know where a lot of it comes from. So when that is apparent, I think we have to look at how we show prejudices and what we view as beautiful and what we view as trustworthy and acceptable. A lot, I think, comes from those foundational points. And then also, to partner with that, I think when we see a lot of the desire for flawlessness, right, and perfection.
Just as evident as colorism has been in shaping America's standard of beauty, the desire to be flawless has been just as influential.
We were talking about how we're seeing a little bit more now in mainstream, just kind of breaking out of that box, but for the longest, what we see on TV, what we see in magazines, what we see in movies is perfection, right?
For decades, the idea that being blemish-free is something to be celebrated has been the subtle undertone throughout. Although we've recently made some amazing steps in the right direction concerning this, we still have a long way to go. I've spent majority of my life hiding my birthmark behind concealers and powders, never wanting to leave the house without them on. It was more acceptable and drew less unwanted attention when my face appeared unblemished.
Whenever there was somebody with a blemish, something, it's like you want to cover it up. And we knew a lot now that it's coming more apparent, like about photoshopping and airbrushing. You want to get rid of flaws and, cover up scarring and do all of that. Again, it just kind of speaks to why I feel like we are where we're at now, where like what beauty is. It's like fair skin, blemish-free, flawless, is a lot of, I think, what we've been conditioned to believe is what's beautiful, what's acceptable, what's valuable.
The visibly skin-different community, which I'm also a part of, individuals whose outermost layer display a multitude of speckles, spots, textures, and hues. This group has also been heavily impacted by the societal norms. Navigating this world with stares from unapproving eyes and the comments of those who often look at them in disgust, as if they should apologize for the way that they look. Made to feel unattractive and unworthy. Those in the visibly skin different community know firsthand the sting and prejudices that come with living in a society whose norms label them as abnormal.
I think when we think about kids, and not even just kids, as adults, like growing up with that conditioning, it's no wonder why a lot of us have those feelings of insecurity and self-hate and feeling like they're not as good as, why don't I look like that? Something must be wrong with me, you know? And it's important to combat that with the truth and positivity and understanding, like, no, you were created for a purpose, and your uniqueness and individuality and the fact that your skin isn't flawless is unique and amazing and exactly what it should be.
I believe we need to counter the centuries of discriminatory conditioning by shifting the narrative and altering how we perceive and recognize beauty. And what better place to focus these efforts than in the hearts and minds of our most precious and impressionable?
Helping to shift that perspective is so very important to me, because we've had years and years, like I said, from just history of just feeling inferior.
I wrote the children's book Beautifully Blemished as a means to support these efforts. It's an ode to both of these communities, the Black and visibly skin different, which I proudly belong. Written to help empower little boys and girls in the skin different community while educating the world on our unique differences.
And I think even just me personally, you know, being a woman, being a Black woman, and being a Black woman who's blemished, you could almost say I have, you know, 3 strikes against me. That's why I'm so passionate about this, because it's very important to speak to that. Having the character on the front cover of the book being a darker skinned little girl that has vitiligo, which is a very visible skin condition. And so I kind of wanted to give a loud voice to that. I wanted the book to highlight many different types of skin differences.
From blemishes and birthmarks to scars and acne, Chicago author Leanne Stuckey published a book inspiring kids to find delight in their imperfections.
So just kind of shift the perspective of how we look at blemishes, how we look at scars and birthmarks. This makes me unique, this makes me beautiful and rare and a treasure.
This Black History Month, ABC7 proudly celebrates those making a positive impact in our communities.